perfect. Smokey's like perfectly over my shoulder.
Yeah.
It's a kitten. Everyone likes cats.
Everyone loves kittens.
I mean, not everyone, but like, you know, whatever. Cats get views. People like it when the cats are visible in the whatnots. Mama.
My bad.
Nice setup.
I'm sorry. Just trying to sit down.
There's so many cables and shit.
Are.
This is not efficient.
No, it's not. It's really not.
But if I unplug any of them, they'll die during the stream. So it's just, it needs to be this way. Hello, Rick. I'm gonna do a thing.
You just say yo to yourself.
Yes, because I'm like, I tried to post the Discord link with the Broken Spectacles account, but I couldn't because it's like not a moderator.
Do I need to do it again?
No, because there's a simple solution. I put Broken Spectacles in chat and then made it a moderator.
Okay. That's gonna tell us behind you there.
I'll accept my moderator award now, please. I was the first here. I earned mod. That's how it works. Is that how it works? It's just whoever joins the live chat first gets to be the moderator for that chat, for that live stream. That would be a chaotic way to do things.
I think he was the first commenter. I don't know if he was the first to watch it, because I think you probably had it up first.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant. First, you know, whatever.
Comment.
I will take my talents elsewhere. Well, your talents are appreciated here. Hello. So, you know, I would like you to hang out here. It'd be pretty cool if you did. It would be all right. I enjoy seeing you. You know, you might not have moderator powers, but, you know, I still enjoy seeing you. You're a valuable member of the streams and whatnot. What?
There was something I should have done before.
Bought bread?
Well, that and take
Hello.
out money for the cards now.
We'll just have to stop somewhere in the morning. That's our option. Hello. What's up from Nashville, Tennessee? What's up from Kansas? I'm not doing it. I almost did. Zuver, I almost did it. I almost fell for it. I almost fell for it. I caught myself, like, right at the last second. I almost did it. It's Zuver putting the Bible as evidence for God again. The bait that I've fallen for the last 2 times. Almost. So, like, my mouth started moving. Damn. It'd be a real shame if someone reported your stream for domestic terrorism because they were upset they did not receive moderator status. That would be unfortunate, Rick. That would be very unfortunate. That would be not ideal. I'm glad. I don't think you would do something like that. I would hope you're not that petty. Live 45. It is live stream number 45. Isn't that interesting? Almost live stream 50. I've done a few live streams on here. I did about 50 live streams on my TikTok before I moved over here. So, like, nearing 50 live streams here is kind of cool. Like, kind of getting caught back up. Catch up to that other 50 and then pass it. keep doing it. I'll keep doing it. It's fun. I like the live streams. I hope you're all doing well today. Don't pause that. I hope you're all doing fantastic today. Let go of that. My laptop. Have you met my cousin? Sometimes he joins the stream. I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say that. And I am gonna go ahead and delete that message because we don't need that. We don't need that in chat, Rick. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, it's fair enough. Fair is fair. All's forgiven. It'd be a shame if someone reported you for domestic terrorism for putting that comment. I had to make a post. I had to make, hello. Do you think there's evidence for God? I haven't come across any. So, doesn't look like it. I've really tried finding it and just not really come up with much. It would be a shame, but some local twink allegedly deleted it already. Also, it's gone. The evidence is gone. Damn. I've been trying to find evidence for God. Really have. Really have for a few years now. But what would you consider evidence? See, that's problem number one. I'm not entirely sure, but it would be to the same standard of evidence that we hold everything else to. Something testable, measurable, observable, tangible, something that we can actually do something with and experiment on and verify. Essentially the same standard of evidence that we use for everything else. I'm not entirely sure what that would look like. Because especially you get into, because when you think about it, God could come down and start speaking to the people, but like, am I hallucinating? Is it some projection or, whatever? Is it drone projection in the sky? Drones making an image in the sky. He would have to do something pretty crazy, like, I don't know, like split the world. It would have to be something that we really just can't ignore. And even then, not being able to explain something is not evidence for a God. So it would really, I really don't know. I think we know it when we see it. I would like to think so. And I think maybe we would just leave it at that. I think we would know it when we see it. And I haven't seen it. And I really just don't know. I'm trying to grasp at straws. I'm really trying to give you a better answer to that question. But I really just, I don't know. We're talking about something that seems to operate completely outside of the realm of reality, of everything that we see and observe and experience and everything. We're talking about something with the same kind of interaction with reality, as far as we can tell, as something that doesn't exist. So it's just it's hard. I'm not sure what it would be. Why do you grab that? Do you accept historical evidence? Because what you described is like scientific evidence, but we do have different kinds of evidence, Historical evidence would be fine to an extent. I guess it would just be a case-by-case basis. Because there's been things that have been, like they say they found Noah's Ark, or they found seashells on top of mountains, or they found this pillar of salt that's Lot's wife, but then we actually look at it and study it and find better explanations for it. Which, in fairness, when you're talking about something that has never been demonstrated and has no evidence for it, anything within the grounds of reality is, I think, a better possible explanation for it. Like, I do tend to lean towards that bias when I see something weird, of saying, well, it probably has a natural explanation, just because everything else seems to. We don't really have a supernatural one. But historical evidence in this regard, it would depend, but probably not. I assume you're hinting at historical evidence for Jesus, and see, and then there's stuff like that. I have no problem with the idea that a dude named Jesus existed, gained some followers, made some claims, and got executed. I don't have an issue with that. People have done that, and some of them have become more popular than others. But that doesn't really get me to, also, that guy is God, and he is, all this great stuff. It doesn't really get me there. Well, yeah, because historically we have an abundance of evidence that the Gospels are very reliable. What evidence would that be? Because we don't even have reason to believe that they're eyewitness accounts of Jesus' life or anything. There's some contradictions throughout them. And there's just a bunch of magical, supernatural claims that we just don't have evidence for. Even, what's the word I'm looking for? Extra biblical sources even don't provide much as far as the magical aspect or supernatural aspect. Is it gay for me to want to exclusively date men? A little bit. It might be a little bit. If Jesus hadn't been raised from the dead, there's no way his followers, a bunch of uneducated noodles, would have had the courage to tell people he had. So there are these guys that hijacked planes and flew them into buildings because they thought that they were doing something great for a religion that has nothing to do, well, I wouldn't say it has nothing to do, but a religion other than Christianity. And there are cults like Heaven's Gate and Jonestown, where we've proven that people will do things, crazy things, insane things, drastic things, for things that they believe in and things that they want to fight for. There's even non-religious things that people will fight for. Humanity has been very good at war and fighting each other and killing each other. Different nations have militaries, armies that go to war and fight for that nation. They're not even, a lot of them aren't even fighting for any religion. They're just fighting for their nation or fighting for their loved ones. So people will cling to stuff. And people have clinged to insane stuff. But that doesn't validate the thing that they're clinging to. You should read The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. He does a great job of going through all the evidence for his existence and his claims. You brought back PTS, Grace. So I've read The Case for Christ. It's not good. It's completely one-sided, biased. Most of the arguments, I haven't read it in a hot minute, like a year and a half. And I haven't really reviewed it, but even not long after I started doing this stuff and really learning more about religions and deep diving into it, I read it, and I most of the arguments I had heard better, more compelling counter arguments for, but they don't give those counter arguments. It is completely biased and one-sided, and some of the stuff's just wrong. One of the guys that Strobel interviewed straight up mixed up slavery and indentured servitude in the Bible. saying that slavery was a system where you have to let them go every 7 years and treat them nice. That's not the slavery. That's indentured servitude. Slaves in the Bible are slaves for life, and you don't necessarily have to be nice to them. So I am not willing to really accept the case for Christ. What did they have to cling to? What did they have to cling to? Right? What did they have to cling to? I can't read. That's something you might learn about me. They saw Jesus die. Allegedly. Allegedly, they saw Jesus die. And allegedly, according to the Bible, they saw him raised from the dead. That's what we got. And it's, you don't really know the whole mentality or mindset of what was going on and what they believed or what they expected or why they expected it or whatever else, or what happened at all. A lot of it could be stuff that was made up after the fact, well after the fact. So we really just don't know. We don't really know what was going on in their minds or what all they saw, how all they felt about it, what all Jesus did. We really just don't. We have the Bible, but the Bible is it's a collection of claims, and it's not verified, and it's not really evidence. Are there any religions that you know of that don't detest homosexuality? Not that I know of definitively. I feel like Buddhism wouldn't care, but I could be completely wrong. The Bible gives instructions for 2 different kinds of slaves. Jewish slaves, which are more servants, indentured servants, that you have to let go after 7 years and that you can't be cruel to. And other slaves, property for life. And children could inherit them. Not to mention you could beat your slaves as long as they don't die. Very loving God indeed. Well, specifically, you can beat your slaves with a rod so long as they don't die within a couple of days. If they die after a couple of days, it's fine because they're your property anyway. If they're able to continue on for a few days, it's fine because they're your property. So you can beat them hard enough to where they die 4 days later. That's the cap. You also can't dismember them. Like if they lose an eye or lose an ear or stuff like that, you have to set them free and stuff. But you can just bludgeon them with a rod. Right, but if they hadn't seen him raised from the dead, they wouldn't have been able to spread their religion across the known world. Other religions have been able to spread across the known world without stuff like that. Are you winning, son? Sometimes. Jesus turns the world upside down with his radical teachings to love all people regardless of status or belief. Following him, I care for the highest good of all, trusting in a God whose love never gives up. I live in hope of life after death where all are ultimately reconciled. Cool. In atheism, I see no lasting hope beyond this life, only what we can create for ourselves. That contrast matters to me. So, okay, I'll play along. If there is no God, no afterlife, no nothing, which atheism doesn't necessarily touch on an afterlife, but we'll go with it all. We'll go with the whole thing. If there's no God, no afterlife, no nothing, once humans are gone, we're all gone. And ultimately, none of it's going to matter. And that sucks. But that doesn't make it incorrect. That doesn't make it false. I just want to say I hope you continue to search for truth with an open mind. The Gospels are absolutely written by eyewitnesses. There is something we do know and we can trust. That's not something that we know or trust. I'm pretty sure in the New American Bible it even says they were published anonymously, at least a couple of the Gospels. You have a respectful tone and aren't being rude. Respect. I really try. I try not to be an asshole. Obviously I'm here to discuss. And obviously, you know, where things are going to get a little heated and spicy, and you know, I have my opinions and stances and whatnot, but I definitely do not try to be an asshole. I definitely try not to be an asshole. God, we're 20 minutes into the live stream already. Goodness me. That's not right. Yes, it is. No, it is not. I'm trying to find something. Trying to find something. Trying to find something. There it is. Where am I? Who am I? Okay, so I was worried that it was going to stay on white screen and not dark mode. I was going to be upset. Beep. That is the Discord that Broken Spectacles, it's an alt account. Don't worry about it. A Discord where if anybody wants to have a verbal discussion with me, you can hop on there, go to the live stream, chat channel, text channel, and follow the instructions, and we can have a voice talk. Yes, look at the trees. Look at the tree. You know, I sometimes use look at the trees. Honestly, I sometimes say like, yeah, shit's weird. What is a tree? Why does it look like that? What are humans? Why do I have appendages like this? It's like, the world's super weird, and it's like, I agree, because Christians like to point out, it's like, how did all this get here? This is crazy, and everything works, you know, like this, and that's crazy. And it's like, I absolutely agree. Does not mean there's a God. Does not mean there's a God. The anonymous book of the New Testament is Hebrews. There's a few more anonymous ones. I believe because it feels good. That's also a reason that people use. And you know, sometimes that's valid. You know, if you want to believe that there's something else out there just because it makes you happy and you're not using it to be an asshole and justify being an asshole, go for it. I'm happy for you. I want to learn about the world. I want to know what's real and what's true. So, like, that's what I'm here to do. That's what I'm here for. Yeah. In a way, it does mean there's something that created all of nature. Then the question is what or who? Yeah. Where did all of this come from? How did all of this get here? Where did all of this start? There is an answer to that. We just don't know what that answer is. And then there's faith. Faith. Arguably the most unreliable path to the truth. But you know, it's there. It's there. Forgive I was looking at something, making sure my battery was still good. If you're saying truth isn't based on what we want, yeah, I am saying that. For me, following Jesus' way of radical love, humility, and care for all people doesn't just seem good, it seems right. It aligns with the deepest parts of my conscience and leads to real transformation. That lived goodness points me to something real behind it all. And I'm happy for you. If that's like the one thing that you want to take from the Bible, just love everyone and be a good person, aces. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't stop there. They follow other rules and other things in the Bible, and use that to justify hatred and bigotry, and to halt science and the progress of science. So, and it does get very harmful. But I mean, if all you're gonna do is just be like, I believe God wants us to love people, so I'm gonna love people. Aces. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I believe in God not to escape despair, but because this way of life makes the most sense of reality and feels like it was meant to be lived. Well, there's a lot of things that we can just make up that answer questions to answers that we don't have questions to. That doesn't make it real either. Just because we can come up with something that makes sense and that covers all the gaps, even though Christianity doesn't mean any of that's true. We still have to verify all of those claims. Even before I was a Christian, I always knew there must be a God of some kind because of nature. I don't agree, but, a lot of people do come to that conclusion. Believe for a selfish reason because I want to go to heaven, not hell. Sometimes that's right. There's a lot of reasons to believe. There's a lot of reasons to believe. But that's not the fault of Jesus' message. It's a result of ignoring it. Sure. Jesus is God. He is the God of the Bible. And he upheld the laws of the Old Testament and also made the laws of the Old Testament. And throughout the Bible supports things like genocide, slavery, misogyny, and child abuse. So you lose me a little bit. If we want to pick out the little parts where Jesus says love each other, again, that's great. We can go down the rabbit hole of you're not a true Christian, but I don't want people to be true Christians, because following the Bible I don't think is a good thing. So I don't know. When I look at what Jesus actually taught, love your enemies, care for the poor, humble yourself, I see something that, when lived out, consistently produces good. It can be good. It doesn't prove it's true, but it points to truth. Not every belief system bears that kind of fruit. Maybe. I think we can come up with better systems without invoking religion, without invoking supernatural things that we can't test or have no evidence for, and don't come with the negative baggage that religions come with. I think we've overall developed a pretty decent system of morality, just throughout human history as humans have evolved and learned how to deal with one another, and kind of built a moral system that operates mostly around overall human well-being. Now, what the specifics of that is can be disagreed upon and discussed, and that's, things get messy, and then some people don't care about human well-being, and then that gets even more messy. But overall human well-being, taking care of one another, not because there's some God that told us to, but that's just because that's just the good thing to do, and that's the best thing for a human society, for everyone involved, including yourself. That's what I go for. Personally, I get my morals from, and I know you weren't specifically talking about morality, but I'm on this tangent now, so I'm going off on a tangent. Personally, I got my morality from being treated like shit throughout my childhood, and all the depression, anxiety, and trauma, and wanting to take my own life that brought me, and just coming to the idea of hey, I don't want other people to feel like this, and I definitely don't want to make other people feel like this. So I adjusted my shit accordingly. And I especially tried to become the type of person that I needed growing up, but didn't always have, because I knew what it was like to be treated like shit, and I didn't wish that upon anyone. I would never want to cast anyone into that darkness, and I would never want to just leave anyone sitting in that darkness, knowing that there's something I can do about it. Nothing and nothing accidentally created everything. No. I don't believe that, but you know. The Gospels were written by anonymous authors decades after their supposed events. That's, yes, I agree with Zuber. Atheists are allergic to the word how. How? And that's a double whammy, because one, I'm saying how, proving that I'm not allergic to word, and two, because I'm genuinely curious as to what you're going on about. I genuinely don't know what you mean by that. So I'm constantly wondering how did all this get here? What happened? What caused all of this? You know, why is there something instead of nothing? I just look for things backed by evidence. Okay, sure, I don't agree, and neither does history. I do sincerely hope you come to know Jesus personally. He is our salvation and hope and God revealed. I love you all and will pray for you. I appreciate it, Grace. How? Yes, how? Weavade. That's what I asked. How are atheists allergic to the word how? What do you mean by that? What evidence do you cite for the authors of the Gospels, as stated in the Gospels, not being accurate? It's the academic consensus. People who are much better at this and actually study this and learn about it agree that it is, including Christians, agree that it is probably not, they were probably not eyewitness accounts. Isn't it annoying when people passive aggressively say they will pray for you? I don't mind it. It's said in goodwill, you know. It's said in goodwill. She's not trying to be mean about it. It's, as someone who was a devout Christian and can understand where that's coming from. It's not meant to be anything rude or anything. The absolute stupidity of having no answer to how does nothing and nothing create everything. The absolute stupidity of having no answer to how does nothing and nothing create everything. I don't know who believes nothing and nothing created everything. That's not my position. That's not a position of a lot of atheists. I don't even know what nothing would be. Nothing has no properties, so nothing can't create everything. So I wouldn't know how something with no properties and no ability to do anything teams up with something with no properties and no ability to do anything does everything. I wouldn't know how. But that's not the claim that I make. What if the problem isn't God, but the way we've imagined him? Eternal torment, penal submission, original sin. Paul said God will be all in all. What if God really is love, not wrath dressed up in religion, but patient, restoring, all-embracing love? That vision doesn't reject justice, it completes it through healing. If there is an all-loving, good being, it's not the God presented by, I think, any of the religions I've come across. So if they want to show up and make an effort to make themselves known and bring peace and love and healing to the world, let's do it. But it doesn't seem like that's happened. Was there a specific moment when you stopped believing in God? Kind of. So it was at the tail end of like a 7-year deconstruction process where I kind of slowly weaned off of the faith. But the real thing, when I was pretty much identifying as an atheist, but I still, like, I was looking at it, I'm saying, I don't have any reason to believe in a God. There's no evidence for it. But I still had that last little string. I made a Facebook post, because before I made content online in public, I posted it to my poor defenseless Facebook friends, you know, like 200 something poor defenseless Facebook friends, spouting my shit to them. And it was when the Santa Claus TV show came out, and the kids organized the letters to spell "We love you, Satan." And then there was a moment in the show where they did that, and then just like, oh crap, and then like they switched it to be like Santa, and people were screaming about it. People were freaking out about it because it's like, they're not even trying to hide it. Satan is penetrating our media. It's trying to get to our kids. All this stuff, and so I made a little Facebook post about it, I just about how stupid it is. And I started it with, first off, Satan's not real. Second off, and then I, went on to how it's ridiculous, how it was just a joke, how that terrible thing was the whole point. It was that oh shit factor. The kids, messed up and accidentally spelled something horrible. That's the whole point. But then I reflected more on, my first point being Satan's not real. Because I'm like, no, I would amend my statement to Satan's probably not real. Which even now, I would amend my statement to we just have no reason to believe that he's real, because even probability you need to demonstrate. But I got to thinking, okay, Satan's probably not real, because and I went down this rabbit hole of, we have as much reason to believe in Satan as we do Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, the Loch Ness Monster, a flat Earth. And I just kept going down all these ridiculous things. And then finally, I'm like, as much reason as we have to believe in a God. And that was really the final connector of, there really just is no good reason to believe in a God. And that was that last little stepping stone that I needed from atheism to theism, or theism to atheism, after like a 7-year journey from Catholic to non-denominational Christian to theist without a religion to atheist. So there was that last stepping stone. 1 John says, God is love, not just loving, but love itself. That love is patient, kind, keeps no record of wrongs. That kind of God does that sound like? Not one who gives up on anyone. Then he'll show up, because that's not the God of the Bible. That's not there. There's more passages than that, and that is just not the God in the Bible. So, one that has yet to show up, and I'd be interested to see it. I think I might have skipped some more chats. Please forgive me if I did. You can have a relationship with many other gods. It doesn't make your God mean your God is creator. Plenty of people believe that they have relationships with plenty of different gods, and plenty of different versions of the Christian God. It doesn't make any of them right. It's crazy when you realize that every word Jesus said is not even his, but are all secondhand accounts which could be made up. And the idea of an all-knowing God being unable to write is laughable. Well, I mean, he can. He made the first 10 commandments. So he did do that. Moses broke them, and then God's just like, no, fuck you. You're making the next ones by yourself. Don't break my shit. So like, he can. He wrote it. He made tablets and wrote stuff down on them. So he can. I mean, he can do everything. But he does demonstrate in the Bible that he can write. That's a pretty desperate stretch. The lack of writing from God, embodying the most important messages in human history by his own hand, is pretty damning. The fact that this God constantly needs humans to act on his behalf, needed humans to write the Bible for him, needed humans to enact his laws, to make this change, to invade this country, to do this. The fact that here in the U.S. we have humans trying to force God's law on the general public and try to get religion into politics. The fact that this God doesn't seem to be able to do shit by himself and needs to rely on these humans speaks volumes, I think, about his existence And if he does exist, his power, he has to use our dumbasses as a mediator. I just think that speaks volumes. I would say he has shown himself in Jesus. He didn't come with force or spectacle, but in humility, love, and self-giving. That's easy to miss if we're expecting power or fear. But Jesus revealed God who washes feet, forgives enemies, and says, Father, forgive them. That is the God of the Bible. This is not the God of the Bible. Many just haven't seen him clearly because of the way religion has distorted his image, but he's there all through the story. The humility and love and whatnot, especially the humility aspect. God sent himself to sacrifice himself to himself, to make a whole look-at-me display, to save the people from a system that he created in the first place, a whole messed-up system that he created in the first place, in which we are all on a conveyor belt as soon as we were born, heading towards hell, and only by accepting Jesus can we get off of that. But that conveyor belt to hell is a default, and most humans will go to hell, and most humans throughout human history have gone to hell, according to Christianity. But the idea that we had this whole honestly egotistical look-at-me display of a God coming down to earth for about 30-something years, a little over 30 years, having a decent 30 years, having a really shitty end, really shitty past few days, suffered, died, I wouldn't want to go through the stuff that Jesus apparently went through. I would not at all. But then a few days later, not even, he was back up walking around like nothing happened. He let somebody stick their fingers in his wounds like it was a party trick, and then he skipped back up to heaven. It wasn't a sacrifice. It wasn't a sacrifice. And now it's used as a manipulation tool of like, look, I died for you. Look at the sacrifice I did for you. You didn't sacrifice shit. You're living it up in paradise. I can't pay bills. Like, you didn't sacrifice anything for anyone. It was just this big egotistical display. And it rings more to me of like an abusive partner. You wanting to get away from an abusive partner, but then you go into kidney failure and they donate one of their kidneys to you. And then they can say, I donated a kidney to you. I gave a kidney to you. You can't just leave me. You can't just like shit on that gift that I gave you. That is what it kind of speaks more to in the story. I don't have control over you. Sure. I'm doing a live stream. As tempting as it is. Taylor's ordering McDonald's. Hi, Doom. Why did I look around? Hi, Doom. You're right here. The camera's here. I've switched to mostly looking at my live chat on the computer because I have my Broken Spectacles account watching the live chat on the computer. It's just bigger font and it's easier for me to interact with. So I keep looking over here. I have a camera on my laptop. I don't even look at that. I look at the chat when I'm engaging. But the audience is here. Hi. Hello.
Are you sure? Because you've been live for close to an hour.
Close to an hour. I haven't really been liking McDonald's, though. I'm going to be honest with you. No. It's kind of garbage. No. I don't need it.
Okay.
No, clearly I'm inside your computer. I think that all will be saved ultimately, like Paul thinks. Maybe. Penal substitutionary atonement. I'm gonna need you to break that down for me a little bit. I'm gonna need you to like kindergarten translate that for me. Penal substitutionary atonement. I think I know what you're saying, but go ahead and do the work for me, if you will. If you will just translate that a little bit for me. like it sounds like self-sacrifice or sacrificing human sacrifice. Hi, Darth Severus. Good to see you. Got some people in the chat today. Good to see y'all. Through history, people have said that they have received instructions from God. What makes Jesus any different than the Mormon Joseph Smith or any of the other thousands of prophets past and present? Yeah. There have been plenty of religions, plenty of cults, plenty of gods, plenty of cultural beliefs in this or that. But this one is the right one. There are a lot of attributes about God we can figure out without needing to be some sort of transcendent being. We invented the concept, but we don't know the exact nature of it if it's real. We can figure out a lot, though. Yeah? I mean, I sometimes wonder, because people will sometimes argue, like, how can we conceive of an idea of such a perfect being as a God, as an all-knowing, all-powerful God? How can we conceive of that an idea? And I get to thinking about it, and we don't. Because I don't know if a lot of us can really explain and understand what that would look like. We just kind of shove the peg all the way to the end of the spectrum and say that's God. We don't even know what's all-powerful, all-knowing, all whatever would really look like. We don't really have a way to describe it. So we just said, like, oh, there must be an ultimate good, God. And we don't really understand it because there's not really anything to understand. And we probably wouldn't understand something like that. I will need more food after the stream. I don't know what I want, though. I had pizza today. There are some assumptions we can make about the Creator. We can rule out certain possibilities because it would contradict with the nature of reality, like God can't be all good or all evil. Yeah, I'd agree. How did you go telling your parents you no longer believe in God? We never really had that talk. I made those Facebook posts. If you had access to my Facebook page, which it's private for the protection of my friends and family and whatnot, but if you were to have access to it, and if you were to scroll back, you would see my deconstruction process. You would see when I was speaking out defending Catholicism. You would see when I was speaking out defending God and Christianity, and even when I was speaking against Catholicism. You could see when I was defending this idea of an all-loving God that I believed in, but speaking out against Christianity and other religions. You can see when I became an atheist and started speaking out against the idea of a God and all this stuff. So they were watching, friends and family were watching. And I always just kind of assumed that, they saw it. And I did make a post a few months ago because it became warranted. This one, it wasn't out of the blue. It became warranted. Just making a post of like, hey, Taylor and I aren't Christian, and we're not raising our daughter to be Christian. So to our friends and family who regularly interact with us or babysit our daughter or whatever else, don't teach her Christianity. Don't go there with her. Don't talk to her about, angels. Don't teach her about God, please. Respect our beliefs. And it was a little bit more, professional and well put than that. But that's essentially the gist of what it was. And my mom texted me saying, I don't understand it, but, I love you no matter what and all that stuff. So, like, there's this confirmation that, they know, right? But like, I knew they knew. It's just not something we really talk about too terribly much. I don't really talk to my parents about anything these days, but you know, that's you know, penal substitutionary, the idea that God sacrifices himself for himself to avoid hell, essentially. That's what you were pushing back against, and I agree. It's nonsense. Jesus's sacrifice isn't about punishment, but about healing, reconciliation, and defeating death and division. Maybe there are better ideas, ways to understand God that point to a bigger, more loving picture worth following. Jogs, it seems like you just kind of have your own flavor of Christianity, and I've seen a lot of them. Doesn't really seem to align perfectly with the Bible, but this, I mean, I like to say that there are thousands of different denominations of Christianity, each with varying ideas on what God is, what he wants, all of that stuff. And then within those denominations, there are who knows how many different people, each with their own ideas on what God is and what God wants from us, usually stemming from their denomination. So I've had a bunch of different ideas of Christianity and a bunch of different ideas of the Christian God and of the biblical God presented to me. And there's a wide range from more biblical sources to not so biblical sources. And I don't know who I really am to say that your what's the word I'm looking for, interpretation is wrong, but it is definitely not the interpretation that I get upon reading the Bible. It is definitely not. And I try to read the Bible with an open mind. I try to look at the whole thing and give it an honest, good, this is what the Bible says, because this is just what the Bible says. I don't try to cherry pick. I don't try to twist. I don't try to do anything. I just try to present it as is, the entire mosaic of the Bible as is, Old and New Testament. And that's where I get my ideas from. And then I also like to piggyback off of Christianity, because Christianity doesn't perfectly follow the Bible either. So I kind of try to keep those separate, you know, just because I'm talking about the Christian God doesn't necessarily mean I'm talking about the biblical God, if that makes sense, because there has been some deviation. I mean, of course there's been deviation. I just said there's thousands of different denominations. But yeah, I disagree with the interpretation. I'm not sure where I was going with that, but I disagree with the interpretation. I have been going live for almost an hour. I think I'm losing my straw. I get that there are many Christian flavors, but this isn't just modern or personal. Okay. Why do you like Halloween so much? I always just have. Even back when I was a Christian. When I was a Christian, and even just when I was a theist, when I believed in a God, I believed in all kinds of supernatural stuff. Ghosts, spirits, energy, like spiritual energy, all this stuff. And I just liked it. I felt like I had a connection to the supernatural. Definitely felt like I had a relationship with the Christian God. Or, you know, later on, the God that I believed in that was loosely based off of the Christian God when I was just a theist. But I just felt like I had a connection to this stuff, especially kind of like the darker side. And Halloween just kind of like fed that. It just kind of like felt right. It's the spooky supernatural time of the year. It's a fun time of year. I don't know. And there might just be some childhood nostalgia. Maybe it was just the one that I just kind of fixated on as a kid, and that's why, you know, I don't really know all the ins and outs, but I just like it. And it's great. And I love it. It has lost some of its charm now that because when I stopped believing in God, my belief in other supernatural things followed immediately. You know, they were the train cars connected to the engine. It took everything with it. Because I have as much reason to believe in ghosts and spirits and spiritual energy as I do a God. So it all just kind of went out the window at once. So Halloween these days is kind of like Christmas once you find out about Santa Claus for me. You know, some of the more magical aspect is gone, but I don't know. I've always felt like, and this isn't going to sound right now because I don't believe I have a soul anymore, but I've always felt like I had kind of a dark soul. I'm just kind of drawn to that stuff. So yeah, I guess that's the best explanation I have. Early church fathers like Gregory of Nyssa, who are highly skilled in Greek and deeply studied scripture, believed in universal restoration because of what the Bible actually teaches. His view comes from careful biblical interpretation, not just opinion, so this belief is rooted in historic Christianity and serious scholarship. Okay. I might have to look him up. I'll take the picture. Universal restoration. So how does that work? How do we get to that restoration? Because from what I've understood with Christianity is we're on a conveyor belt to hell. Humans are born into this world and they're immediately on a conveyor belt to hell. God can remove you from that conveyor belt, but you have to follow him and obey him and listen to him and all of this stuff. There's a price to be paid. Is that something that you believe? Or is it just like, overall, just don't be a shitty person? Or like, how does that restoration work? How do we get, how do I get to heaven, I guess is a good way to put it. It's time to hallow the ween, being drawn towards malice evil, not in the essence of endorsement, but in the sense that it is what captures your attention, is something nearly all humans have. We are prone to focusing on negative things to survive. Threats must be addressed. We evolved to respond that way. Yeah. And I remember, I don't know if I completely hold to this these days, but I do remember when I was younger, one reason that I came up with for Halloween, for liking Halloween, is it's a time of the year where the scary things don't have to be scary. You know, you're going through. We have a local haunted house attraction near me. It's not in the city I live in, but it's like near. Cause in South Central Kansas, we're kind of like clustered together, and like every city is like a couple hours from each other. But near us, there is a haunted house attraction, and it's blood and gore and people running at you dressed in scary stuff, and somebody with a chainsaw coming after you, and like it's terrifying. And it would be terrifying in any other circumstance, but I'm in a haunted house attraction, so it's not terrifying because these people aren't going to hurt me. So it can be fun. It can be fun and kind of like horror movies. You know, I'm not watching a actual found footage of like a serial killer murdering a bunch of college kids. I'm just watching a depiction. Like it's where the scary things don't have to be scary. In Wichita, around Wichita, in that general area. I won't say exactly where, but in that. Love the sunglasses, by the way. Oakleys are my favorite brand. Are they Oakleys? Yeah, I guess they have that thing. I just like picked them because like they looked. I don't know. Also, it doesn't help. I mean, I really do like these glasses. I like the thicker frames. I'm going to be honest. When I picked them out, I had my eyes dilated, so I couldn't fucking see. I could not see. I'm like getting this close to the shelf. Like, so I had thicker frames before this, And so I'm just like, I want to stick with a thick frame. So I just kind of like found in my half-blind state thicker frames, and that's I like them. I like them. They're pretty good. Heaven is a free gift from God, but it is up to us to accept that gift. It's not a free gift if it's like, sell me your soul, dedicate your entire existence to me. That's not free. That's the opposite of free. It's the most expensive thing ever. Hello. The idea of universal restoration is that Jesus has conquered death and broken its power over all people, not just a select few. Jesus is the Savior of the world. Everyone will rise from the dead and be held accountable for their choices, but instead of eternal punishment, this accountability leads to healing and transformation. Over time, all will be drawn back to God's love and restored. It's not about a conveyor belt to hell, but about God's patience and desire to reconcile everyone in the end. Where's the source for that? Where does that idea come from? Because the Bible absolutely indicates some sort of eternal punishment. It absolutely indicates some kind of separation for evil sinners and followers of Christ. So where do you get this idea? Where does that come from? Rick, you just said respectfully. Respectfully what? I don't know if you put another I don't know if you put another chat in before that, or if you're just like agreeing with something that I said. Boo boo. Some arguments can be made that hell isn't eternal, particularly in the sense of alternate translations, but nothing mentions people inevitably returning to God. Yeah. That's what I'm just curious about. Especially if we're getting it from, like, early church scholars, people who had a little bit more, who were a little bit closer to the source material, but I still want to know what the source material is. Philippians 2 says, every knee will bow and every tongue gladly confess that Jesus is Lord. The word for confess there has a sense of joy there, not some unwillingness to do so. I always took that to mean, spooky. Sorry, my cat's over there. I always took that to mean that one day the existence of God will be undeniable and his presence we will have no choice. We will feel this overwhelming need to bow down to him and confess that he is Lord. So I guess we came to two different conclusions on that verse. Smokey. Kitten. Did your parents let you watch Harry Potter growing up? My mom watches Harry Potter. I'm not kidding. Pretty sure every weekend. I think it's Freeform channel has Harry Potter weekend like every weekend, and she doesn't miss an opportunity to watch it. My mom, she's read the books. My dad's read the books. I was raised in a huge Harry Potter family, so I wasn't raised like evangelical where like, you can't watch Star Wars because it has space. It wasn't I didn't really have a strict, everything is sin upbringing. Right, that's the response from apologists, but read what the author is saying there. You begrudgingly bow down and confess Jesus is Lord. The Greek doesn't allow that interpretation. 1 Corinthians shows Paul's eschatology. Read it. All rise from the dead. All of Jesus' enemies are at his feet, and God is all in all. He is the propitiation of our sins, and not for ours only, but also for the sins of the whole cosmos. the whole cosmos. So how does that harmonize with I'm gonna throw you in, with the burning. I'm gonna separate the wheat from the wheat from the chaff, the goats from the sheep, all of that stuff. How does that harmonize with this idea of you're going to this hell, essentially? How do we harmonize that? Because the overarching theme in even Jesus' teachings is not really this idea of we'll all just be in heaven with Jesus someday. Even Jesus says that very few will enter into eternal life. Very few will enter into eternal life with God. The Catholic Church used to send out lists of movies for parents to not to let their children watch. I came across a review recently for what was it? Moana 2. I don't know, I looked it up because I watched it with my wife and my roommate, and it was like, it wasn't great. It had some great things, but ultimately the execution wasn't great. So I just looked up reviews. I was like, what does the general public think about this? And I found a Christian review of basically evangelical Christians. Is this safe to show your kids? Is this something that your kids should be watching? And they rated it. I can't remember what the rating or whatever it was, but because it depicts other mythologies and gods that aren't consistent with the Christian worldview, it got flagged in this review. It's hey, you gotta be cautious, and if you're gonna watch it with your kids, explain it to them. This isn't real. Our stuff is real. This isn't real. This is even the whole idea of being thrown into a lake of fire. Well, interesting. I would love to hear more. We are nearing the end of the live stream. I would love to have you on a Discord call one of these days, so that you're not limited by chat on the live stream. To kind of, because the chat kind of binds your mouth a little bit. You can't really fully express what you need to with chat. So I do have a Discord, which I'll go ahead and put again in chat. I'm not gonna do Discord calls tonight because we're at the end of the live. But you can join that, discuss, and maybe verbally speak to me in future live streams if you want. The Bible also says God is like a refining fire, and Jesus said we will all be salted with fire. In Revelations, right after the lake of fire scenes. Well, yes, there's the fire of chastisement, but then there's the fire of eternal punishment. So I don't know. I still am hesitant. I still am kind of thinking that you found this different branch of Christianity, that you're kind of going off on your own thing, and you're basing it off of some stuff this other guy said, and maybe doing a little bit of cherry picking and twisting verses to fit your narrative. But maybe I'm wrong, and I would love to hear you defend it further. And if I'm wrong, I would always love to be corrected. I would always love to be corrected if I'm wrong. Looking at 1 Corinthians, it seems to be referring to just the people who accept Christ, not all people. Yeah. There is an overall message in the Bible of follow me or suffer, but who knows? When we see the Spirit and the bride say come, that's not the end of the story. The end is that God will be all in all. Sure. Beep beep boop boop. Oh, and Doom. I haven't said it yet. I've been meaning to I've been meaning to message you about it. My life is chaotic and crazy, so I didn't. While I was on the Discord call in the last live stream, there was somebody who needed to be quieted in chat, and you quieted them, and I want to thank you for that, because that's what moderators do, and you did a good job. Because I wasn't watching chat, I was talking to Eric. I was talking to Eric. I wasn't.
To him right before I did.
Yeah, I was trying to give all my attention to Eric. I peeked over to chat every now and then, and I kind of noticed the guy, but then immediately I'm like, I'm trying to have an intellectual conversation with this dude. I have this dude in the chat. I want to give him my attention. So, it's good to have people who can watch the chat when my back is turned. So thank you. Thanks for the chat. I gotta go. We'll subscribe and talk more another time. God bless. Yes. My thoughts ran away from me. Thank you for stopping by. I enjoyed the talk. I look forward to more. For as in Adam all die, so in Christ all will be made alive. I didn't really expect attempt mute to delete all his messages, though. That was unexpected. Yeah, I don't know what all the stuff does. I guess it would make sense, temp mute. I guess it would make sense. The timeout. I don't know. I haven't had to use the moderation tools on YouTube very much myself, so I can't really tell you what everything is. I don't really have anything for you. Learn as we go. Like I made a video like a year or so ago. An atheist meets God. And it's like you're just responding to someone's like, what are you gonna do when like you're face to face with God? And it's just me just asking questions. And it's like, you're real? Like why is the world awful? And somebody put simple, free will. This earthquake hits and kills like hundreds of people. Because humans have free will. Cancer exists and plagues countless people because free will. Like, we can blame the free will thing on stuff like war, even on hunger. Humans aren't distributing goods properly enough, and poverty and all this stuff. But like acts of nature. If a meteorite crashes to Earth and takes someone out, it's free will. It's not. It's not. It doesn't cover all the bases of all the terrible things that happen in this universe, especially on this planet. Because there are terrible, scary things that happen in the universe. There's just, for all we know, isn't life caught in the crossfire, for all we know. So it's not as bad. Stuff can explode out there and it's great. Unless there's something living next to it, then it is very not great. When your main opposition is Christians, it's very unlikely that a Christian is going to go so far as to warrant muting. They have an ideal they're trying to strive for. It would be unChristly to behave so excessively childishly to warrant it. I recently finished Supernatural. It had a very interesting interpretation on Christian mythology and theology. You used to watch Supernatural. Raised a lot of questions about that would probably be very... Raised a lot of questions that would probably be very confronting for a Christian. Maybe. I watched some Supernatural. Taylor used to watch that.
I loved it.
Seemed like a good show.
There's a reason I watched it.
And you won't get much Christian opposition but it exists. I've had some in definitely my comment sections. Some really, some real love thy neighbor Christians. I say in the most sarcastic sarcastic way possible, in my comment sections. But even in my live chat, I've had some that are just a little much. So they do exist, and I've seen on bigger live streams of like bigger channels how some of the Christians behave there, and I think most of them don't try to cause a stir or be a nuisance, but there's nuisances in nuisances and bad people come in every shape, size, color, and creed you can think of. That's really all it boils down to. With that, I do think it's about time to end the live stream. So thank you everyone for stopping by. Everyone who love thy neighbor equals act completely intellectually dishonestly and dismissive and troll people you don't agree with sometimes. Just cause problems for atheists. I'm trying to speak out against God. So if you can throw a wrench in my plans, it's a good thing for Christianity. But thank you all so much for being here. I do appreciate it. I love doing these live streams. It was a pretty slow one tonight, but sometimes I need those. Sometimes I'll take the slow ones here and there. Thank you for everyone who stopped by, even people who just stopped by for a second and are now gone and not listening to me anymore. None of you owe me anything. I'm a random nobody on the internet. So the fact that anybody stops to give me even a second at a time is pretty cool. I usually go live every Tuesday night at about 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. I have the Discord set up now to where I can bring people up in voice chats during the live streams. Would love to do that more. Yeah. Hope to see you elsewhere. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.